Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're going to be examining a deeply somber and, honestly, profoundly complex chapter of history. Now, to ensure absolute clarity and accuracy, we are relying entirely on the structured historical archives from Poland's Institute of National Remembrance, or the IPN. Together, we'll look at the timeline, the staggering human cost, and also the remarkable stories of humanity that managed to emerge in the darkest of times. Okay, let's dive right into this by anchoring ourselves directly in the historical definition. The IPN officially defines the Volhynia Massacre as an anti-Polish ethnic cleansing carried out by Ukrainian nationalists. And these documented historical records characterize this event as a genocide, which is a highly specific classification for a period of intense violence spanning from 1943 to 1945. Section 1. Scope and Timeline. Let's move to and see how this builds chronologically. The archives show that this terror actually followed a very specific progression. The violence initially sparked at the turn of 1942 and 1943 in Volhynia. Then, in 1944, the anti-Polish terror, which was driven by the OUN-UPA factions, expanded outward into eastern Galicia and the Lublin region. Finally, the records mark the end of this widespread massacre in 1945. And when we talk about geography, the archival records are super specific. The violence encompassed a massive swath of territory. It started in Volhynia and spread right into the Lviv, Ternopil, and Stanislaviev regions, which collectively make up eastern Galicia. It even reached parts of the Lublin region to the west and Police to the north. Charting out these distinct regions is absolutely crucial because it grounds this history in actual, physical places where communities once lived side by side. Section 2. The devastating human cost. So, the crucial point is this number, 100,000. According to conservative estimates compiled by Polish researchers and housed in the IPN archives, that is the total number of Polish casualties resulting from the Volhynia Massacre between 1942 and 1945. It's a staggering, sobering number to try and take in. And this brilliantly illustrates what happens when we break down that massive total into median casualty estimates by region. The geographical impact becomes devastatingly clear. The archives estimate 50,000 victims in Volhynia alone. Another 35,000 were lost in eastern Galicia, and at least 4,000 victims were recorded in what are now modern Polish territories. The sheer density of the tragedy in Volhynia and eastern Galicia is just overwhelming. Section 3. The Ukrainian righteous. But, even within these archives of immense tragedy, there's also documented evidence of incredible bravery. The IPN officially defines the Ukrainian righteous as local Ukrainians who, in moments of extreme, life-threatening danger, made the choice to aid their Polish neighbors. Think about that. In the midst of wartime terror, ordinary people defied the violence around them to protect others, very often risking their own lives to do it. The archives don't just speak in generalities here. They detail the incredibly dangerous actions these individuals took. And their aid took a lot of forms. It meant warning Polish neighbors of impending attacks or indicating safe escape routes during the utter chaos of a raid. The righteous hid the threatened, they misled attackers, and afterward they provided first aid, food, and clothing. Perhaps most movingly of all, they took in and cared for orphans who had become lost after the attacks. These were countless individual acts of immense courage. Section 4. Preserving the memory today. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is understanding how this history interacts with our present day. Just consider the sheer ongoing scale of modern preservation efforts. 47,000. That is the number of entries currently held in the IPN's victim database. And this isn't just a static list either. It's an active, growing archive of individuals, entire families, and specific historical facts. It represents a monumental effort to restore individual identity to those staggering statistics, making sure that history remembers names, not just numbers. The whole philosophy driving this massive archival effort is perfectly encapsulated in the translated title of a literary contest hosted by the IPN. Not for revenge, but for memory and truth, the victims call out. This clearly defines the ultimate purpose of historical preservation. The focus is entirely on documenting historical truth and honoring memory, rather than fueling vengeance. It establishes an undeniable, factual record for future generations. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final thought. We've looked at the hard data, the timeline, the human cost, and the profound acts of bravery, all sourced directly from the Institute of National Remembrance. But history is only as impactful as our willingness to remember it. So I have to ask you, how does preserving historical archives shape our modern understanding of truth and memory? When we structure and protect the facts of the past, how does it change the way we view our world today? Thank you so much for joining me, and keep seeking out the facts.